Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden, and we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you can walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started. So welcome to this episode of the Science and Spirituality Podcast, and we're joined again with Dr. Skye Zimmermann. So welcome to the podcast again, Skye. It's awesome to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, good to be back.
Absolutely. Yeah, our conversations are always very enlightening. So very much looking forward to this one. So yeah, so we'll get right into it since you've been on the podcast many times, Skye. And just have you introduce this whole topic about being like just leading yourself and through like within your own spiritual work, like spiritual self-leadership. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really, learning mostly from myself, I would say, and then bringing what I learned about myself into my work and seeing how it supports other people, hopefully. And what I noticed that when I really started my path of spirituality, right, really in the beginning, we're seeking, you would say, call yourself a spiritual seeker. What I noticed when I started this about 20 years ago, I would, do yoga, I would go to meditation retreat or participate in a ceremony, and I would feel so good. I would feel so connected with myself and with the people there and the divine, right? I was so happy and fulfilled and really like blissing out. And then I would go home and lose it.
Right.
And it was like a separate life that I began to live, where I would do my spiritual practice and have these conversations, and then I would be back in the normal life, right? And it wasn't at all really, at least not to the degree that I found it fulfilling and worthwhile. It wasn't informing my life. It wasn't informing my relationships, my marriage at the time, or it just stayed so isolated, and I became to be really frustrated because I knew this wasn't, it didn't have to be this way.
Right.
But I didn't see how to really bridge it and how to merge me with my spiritual me. I knew this was the same being, but I couldn't bring it through, right? I couldn't hold it when I was challenged, perhaps, and in my old patterns of thinking and behaving and responding. And I just became curious about this question: how do we actually bridge this? So it's one, because I could see there are teachers who absolutely can bridge it, right? There are teachers who, or people who really live this life, and you can tell they embody it. It's not just a concept in their mind. They don't just access it for 20 minutes in meditation or when they're on stage, but they're actually living it. Because I began to know people like this in my life that really inspired me. And the real teachings, though, don't come through words, right? These people don't teach you how by speaking. They speak by I was around them enough to notice certain similarities, and that I then really cultivated in my own life. And that was mostly through simple practices that we all know, gratitude and prayer, if you will. But mainly what started to happen with me as I just held the question then, like, how does this all work? Because I came from medicine, and I for 30 years now I've worked in medicine, and I've seen different, like, the ways we just simply work as a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body, right? Of how this intertwines and how our energy works. I began to see then everything through the lens of energy. Sorry, I was gone for a moment. Can you hear me again?
It's okay. Yeah. I think it just cut out.
Yeah, I have some
You're
internet
back.
issues, unfortunately. So I began to experience life through the lens of energy, and I noticed how my energy was truly how and why it was creating my experience, and how my mind played such an important role in this. And just like you, Kevin, I've learned a lot about how the mind works through our common mentor, Mary, and and then through many other sources. And with that, what started to happen is I started to get these ideas, these downloads on how to really take charge of my energy in my day-to-day through the practices I would begin to do, that I really just sort of developed and tried out. And they helped me anchor my true self, right? This more evolved part of myself that knows not to respond with a certain way, but to honor myself and be the person that I know I am, right? And that I want to show up as, how to really bridge that into my day. And through that journey, which I've been on for the last few years, very specifically, is I'm always in the inquiry of like, this experience, what does it really do? I need to give it meaning? Do I need to judge it? Do I need to have an opinion, or can I just have the experience through my heart and my body? And what's my mind doing right now? Is my mind freaking out, right? So I began to really observe myself through the lens of my own energy, if you will, like very removed, and just seeing where I would default into patterns. And then I started to very deliberately release everything I would get triggered around. And my stories that I told myself about my past became very obvious, how they were just energetically there. And I started to release them methodically, right? And then starting to bring this into working with clients to see, does this really work? Or is this just me? Right? And I'm seeing it actually really works. So it helps people release trauma, their mental baggage, their emotional pain, all of that. And with that, we become more, we remember ourselves, we see ourselves more as who we really are, and we begin to like each other, or ourselves first, and then each other a whole lot more, right? And so I decided to share some of these tools also in the challenge that we'll speak to in the end, right, where I'm sharing some of them in a very practical way so people can just follow along for 21 days to test this for themselves. But the key here, and I think especially today in our world where we're so invited into polarity, right? To be on a side, to have an opinion, and to be against something and to force something. To me, we've really, as a collective, lost a little bit the trust into ourselves and the knowing of who we actually are. And we believe in what we like, in who we are coming to us from the outside.
Yep.
Right?
The external.
We have such an external self-image, if that even makes sense, right?
Yep.
And I think that's very important to notice right now. Do we know who we are? Do we treat ourselves kindly? Do we trust ourselves? And do we know the inner voice that's always there? Can we even hear it anymore? Yeah. And then from that place, right, when we can, and there's absolutely a way where we literally can just take that back, that power, that who we are, that's the place from which we can lead ourselves in a very, in a way that's aligned with who we are, with our values, with what's important for us and for everybody, right? That's where it becomes an inclusive worldview that we live from. And we can lead ourselves in our daily interactions from that place of, I'm showing up here with that level of integrity, and I'm not letting my triggers tell me what to do anymore. Because I understand if I follow through again, I'll create more of the same, and I know where that leads to. And that's the way most people live, right? So we can learn. And I believe these times are invitation to learn how we use our energy, how it actually works, and then to find ways to not, to be that human being that is so beautiful. Because when I look at humanity, I don't see what we're being told on the news. I see the beauty, I see the integrity, and I see these values that are still there, but we are forgetting them somehow. They're not being mirrored and modeled, right? And so that's why I want to speak to this, because I see that being needed right now.
Yeah.
And it needs to move from a spiritual concept into our day-to-day, where it's practical, it's easy, it's not complicated, it's not too esoteric, it's just natural, because it is.
Yeah. Like it becomes more of a way of living rather than, like you were saying, a practice or an experience that you have here or there, but it just actually becomes who you are, the way you live. That, and you've echoed this a couple of times in the things you said so far, but it sounds like really just about a major part of it is having the experience of being who you are in the present moment, not being triggered or pulled to the external to react in a way that has been programmed into us, whether I was conscious or unconscious by that external world or what, like literally everything around us. But I think for most of us, it's unconscious programming, but still to just like, it sounds like to have that own sense of self within, and then to bring that into the world without the, I don't even know what to call it, like illusion, without the right. Yeah. Like it's, because that's not who we are. It's just being like prodded and poked and like, hey, like be this or act this way. Like it's all from the external. It's not from the internal, where our power truly lies.
100%. Exactly. It's 100% that. It's just being who we are.
Right.
It's that these words are thrown around a lot these days, and it's great because it needs to be a conversation. What does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to be sovereign? All these words are up for a reason, and we just want to be careful that we don't just follow along, but we, again, here too, like what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
What does sovereignty, when I feel into that word, right? Because we've been shown in our movies and stories what a king looks like and how that's not really good rulership, right? But that's not true sovereignty. True sovereignty means you are connected with the deepest source of your power and with infinite wisdom. And you lead yourself, and if you have other people to lead from that place, and there's not an ounce of selfishness in there.
Right.
There's not an ounce of being power hungry in there. It just means you're serving.
Exactly.
You're showing up fully, knowing yourself as the extension of life that you are, and your place in this cosmos. You know yourself, and that's when you lead from that place. You're a great sovereign. You would be a great ruler, but we don't need them anymore because we're actually at the place where we rule ourselves, and we're coming to this place of no more hierarchy. It's just horizontal connection, and that's why self-leadership is important and not leadership per se. I mean, yes, there'll be some that's showing the way, but these ones will be the ones who wouldn't want to be put on a pedestal. They would never want it because it's completely against what they're here for.
Right.
I think this whole process, I think this whole process also takes and I think this is lacking in a lot of people in society today, is like a level of self-confidence and the ability to be vulnerable. Because I feel like I'm just thinking about myself, and over the last few years, how my views on things have changed so much. And I feel like some people are just they're afraid to speak about what they truly believe in, because they're like, oh, like what if I don't believe this in a few years or whatever. So that it's just so much easier to follow the crowd. But I think it takes a lot of vulnerability to be truly authentic, because you also have to be willing to be wrong too in some instances, right? Where it's but it's if you don't, I forgot who put it this way, that if you're always afraid to be wrong, you're never going to be able to push the boundaries of what you can possibly do, or what you can possibly help society do, because you're always going to be so just staying inside the bounds. You're never going to be bouncing up against the walls a little bit and pushing society forward. So it takes that vulnerability, and I feel like a lot of people, because of self-confidence or whatever, just it's hard for people to be vulnerable.
Yeah, well, it's such a good point you're making. And it's such an illusion because when we are honest with ourselves, who do we really look up to? These are the people who don't give a shit. They show up as who they are, and they speak their mind with love, but with, in a way where we know it's true for them, and we love that. We know because we can finally trust someone. Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it takes so much courage to show up with that vulnerability. But the language around courage is not you have courage. It's you take courage. It's an act of will. It's an act of devotion. For me, it's it's not easy for me to speak here in some ways. because, right, a lot of me just wants to live happily in the woods, but I'm showing up these days differently. Yeah, I'm showing up differently because I know, I believe in myself and in my voice now. I didn't used to. This wasn't handed to me on a platter. I went through hardships to be able to stand up this way because I didn't look away when I was uncomfortable, right? So I think it's good to push ourselves into these places that are uncomfortable, because that's where we get to know ourselves. And so if we think life, we're here to be comfortable and play it safe, I mean, we can, but it doesn't feel comfortable and safe.
Right.
There's nothing to be gained in this, and you will live Groundhog Day over and over again. The only way, if we're not really happy with what we have, is to create change, and that's always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's okay. Uncomfortableness isn't bad.
Yep.
We think it's bad, but
it's like we're
wonderful.
totally,
you feel alive.
Yes. We're totally programmed though to like avoid discomfort. And this is one of my favorite examples of all time, this idea that like when you're like humans would rather be would rather stay in a known discomfort than venture into something that's unknown. Like it could literally be killing you, but since you're comfortable with it, even though it's uncomfortable, you will stay. And it's like that biological drive to stay in something familiar. And I think that's why it's so important when we talk about the difference between like physical biology and like the fact that you have this spirit inside of you. It's because you need to access that spiritual side of you to be able to transcend the bounds of what's keeping you back physically with your nervous system. And I think a lot of people like, it's very easy to get trapped in that because the pull, like your biology to feel safe, is so strong. But like you also know deep down when you think about it, like when you rationally think it through from like the spiritual side, that you can stay in this comfortable discomfort until you die. And it's like how do you think past that and like take some actions that are going to be uncomfortable? It's like it's very fun. Yeah, it's very difficult.
And that's exactly where the practical tools come in, because you cannot think your way out of it. You actually have to start acting.
Yep. You have to get beyond the mind.
Right? And just
you have to. There's no way to through it with your mind.
It's what keeps us there.
Yep.
Yeah. The mind is what puts us into that slavery. So if we think we can figure this out with our mind and find ways to do things differently from that place. See, the mind can only know what's in the past. If we want to break through and rise above the noise and the fear and all this deception and whatever is going on, we need to connect with who we are, which we do when we actually accept that we are more than our mind and our body, and that ultimately we are a spiritual being.
Yes.
And that is infinite.
Yep.
And that cannot be destroyed. It is up to us and us alone to connect and make that connection stable and solid and strong and at a high frequency. And until we do, we will buy into all the bullshit. We will just think it's real. But once we cultivate our energy and really connect with that incredible, beautiful being that we all are, and these ideas, we are all one, and all that isn't just a concept, like it's your experience. It's your daily experience. Everything will change. Your mind won't be able to tell you these things anymore. And you will show up for things that a year ago you would never have thought you would show up for it. Because that's just who you are now. You don't care anymore about what your mind thinks or if it's uncomfortable. It's like a thing of the past. But how do you get to that place of strength? Because that's real strength, right? You do, and this is where it's so humbling. You do what you've heard other people tell you a million times, and you just do it. You stop saying, because after 3 weeks it hasn't changed you, it doesn't work for you. No, you keep going, right? So the simple things are, you breathe, and you learn practices to be mindful, right? You connect with it. For me, it's all through nature, honestly. When I'm in nature, I know all these things. There is nothing that separates me, and so that's why I sought to be in nature a lot, to remember these ways, because they're all inside of us. You can burn all the books you want, it's in our DNA. This wisdom is in us, but you want to wake it up by making space to wake it up. You want to be silent and still so you can hear it again. And you want to surround yourself with frequencies, right? And with people or environments that are conducive to raising your energy, raising your frequency. And so being in nature, having the best water, do not drink tap water, things like that. We need to put into our body something of a high frequency.
Yeah.
That's not full of chemicals and GMOs, right? And then I want to share some practices. And again, that will be part of the challenge. So you can really feel for yourself how differently you feel, because it is only in the daily application. And
just before you go into that, Skye, because I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you're going to say about the practices to actually apply this and ground this, because I can only imagine someone listening right now is like, all right, I want to know exactly what to do to really just start applying this, because I can only imagine someone listening be like, yes, I want that too. Like, because we all want this to some degree, right? You might be unaware, but I think a lot of people will be aware as like, yes, this will change my life. I can feel it. So before you share some of those practices, just speak to the 21-day challenge just for like literally like 30 seconds to get people in an awareness of like what you're talking about. And then we can go into some of the practices. And if they want to join you for that 21 days, then obviously they'll know to like listen to the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
It's an opportunity to, I call it, rise above the occasion, or rise to the occasion. The occasion being your life, right? But rise to it. And how do you rise to it? You gotta rise your energy, raise your energy. And so it's a 21-day process. Really, there are 3 weeks, 3 main themes where I'm sharing, and I have recorded practices and tools that you will do that just take 2 or 3 minutes a day that you will apply, and then honestly see for yourself, how do you feel differently afterwards, after 3 weeks. And it's an invitation to bring it into your life and up from your wherever you experience these things, if you have before, but to have it grounded in your reality. So that's where it starts to make the change. Otherwise it just creates frustration.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think it's also important too to like, because if you know, someone who's listening might be like, oh, like 3 minutes, like what's that going to do? Like 3 minutes a day, what's that going to do? And I think what people forget is that like the place that you're in now, whether it's a really good place or a really bad place, it was small decisions that added up over time. It's like you wake up and you check Instagram and you watch the news for like 10 minutes a day, like that over time, like starts to like mold the way that you think and see the world. So it's not some like, most of the time it's not some like grand gesture that changes everything for you, which for some people maybe like that does happen when they go to an event or like something crazy happens in their life where it changes them. But most of the time it's really just doing simple small things over and over again that build up over time to create a new reality for you, like changing the circuitry in your brain, changing the way that you relate to emotions. So it really is like those small things you do on a daily basis that add up over time. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that.
100%.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for speaking to that, because that is the only way we'll ever start. Because what's true now, and like you said, right, it is like that, and we change because of impact or repetition. That's how we change. Impact often is not what we like.
Yeah.
So why don't we create the change over time, right? And I started with 3-5 minutes a day, and now I don't know how it even happened, because I have a very full life and day, but I spend about 2 hours in this space.
Well, I think you probably start realizing how important it is. Like,
because exactly.
I've had that relationship with working out over and over again, like over the last like 10 or 15 years of my life, where I'll go through periods where I won't work out at all. And then I'll go through periods where I'll do like 3 or 4 weeks of working out like in a row. And then it's like, I'll do it for months because I'm like, wow, this is super important. It's like you build a relationship with it. And it's like, you start with 2 to 3 minutes a day. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can't stop. And again, it's like, it's similar with any bad habits too. It's like, you know, maybe you spend 5 minutes on Instagram, like trying to release some stress, and then it turns into an hour because like your body thinks it's important. It's like, yeah.
We do what we get rewarded for, sort of on the inside. And it's just happens to be the most bliss. I mean, there is nothing that compares to, for me, than to be in these places. And this is by myself, and it costs no money. And it's just a practice, right? It's a choosing to connect, and the energy then that we experience is so beautiful and empowering, and it changes your life in such a way that you just wouldn't not want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And yet it starts with little baby steps, and it's beautiful. It doesn't have to be grandiose and cost a lot of money. It's right here. Everything is, yes, thank God. It's all within us. It's a choice. Just like every word we speak is a choice. Every thought we think can be a choice, right? So
I was just thinking it could totally not feel like that sometimes. I'm just like thinking like sometimes,
right.
No, seriously, like sometimes you emotionally react to something. You're like, I couldn't choose this. This is just happened. But it's like, no, it actually is a choice.
Yeah.
It's just that split second between what happens and the reaction could be so short sometimes, and you could be so unaware that you have the ability to stick yourself in there and change it, that it could feel like this is just who I am.
Yeah. Great. 100%. Well, let's actually I want to share a tool that I use every day.
Do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
For exactly that, because how do you stop? How do you get out of this reaction where you watch yourself do something that you really wish you hadn't, right? For me, it's through the body. I learned in trauma therapy, a technique I use all the time now, but it's just become my awareness. So, but you could start this way. Let's say you're going to have a challenging conversation, for example, or something's coming up where you might get triggered, right? How you can start this is you decide, I'm going to walk into this phone call or meeting breathing and feeling myself, or even just imagining I'm walking into it now, and you notice your body. So I really do this every day, and it's given me a greater part of my intelligence back, because when we experience this experience through the body as a sensation, we're not in the mind. Okay. And we actually are able to just watch, like, oh, my mind wants to go into this. Oh, he's just like my ex-husband, or and you notice these thoughts pop up. They're trying to write a story over what's actually happening. And you can just watch your inkling to get triggered, but you're like, oh, that's really funny. I'm not gonna go there, because you're loyal to your sensation and your body, and you can just notice, well, this feels like right now my throat is closing down, or my stomach is like, I'm nauseous now as this person is saying this, but I'm still here. And there's nothing bad going on. This is just my past revealing itself. That is powerful. In this moment, you are in your center. And even if someone were to say something that would trigger, usually it's not them, right?
Right.
It's us. But even if so, you would just be like, you have a whole range of responses available now. You could come with humor. You could just walk away. I mean, then it's your choice. See, when we're triggered, it's not our choice. We are stuck in this part of our brain that just sees the tiger. And it, of course, would run away or fight back. I mean, or freeze to death. So we have more options now. We are more in our humanness, where we generally want to be kind, where we want to be generous and understanding, where we can forgive someone, because we can see, for that person to act this way, they're probably having a really hard time right now.
Yeah.
But we can only do that when we are in our center. And so to learn, and I know this can be hard for people that have been trained, it's not safe to be in their body, or it's not okay to show emotions, which is basically all of us, right? But I was that too. And so I simply did it as a practice, right? I did trauma therapy for about 2 years and learned this inside out. But what it left me with is, I now can separate this experience as an experience and not lose myself. And it is simply by following your breath and feeling your body and noticing the thoughts. And so if anybody wants to learn more, that I share this on my website, and I work with this way with people, it's life-changing, because you're no longer the victim of your past, which you are, unless you learn to separate this out. So this is a powerful tool that alone will just completely set someone on a different trajectory, right? Because now they're free to choose what they actually want to create.
I have a question. In the beginning of your journey and all of this, was there any like technique that you use to help yourself remember to do the techniques that you talk about? Because I feel like for some people who might be just starting out, this happens to me a lot too, actually. It's like I'm not in the awareness enough to do the things I know I should be doing. So it's like, do you have a tool to like help be more aware on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis for people who are just starting out? Because the pull back to like that familiar of like being asleep at the wheel is probably super strong in the very beginning until you build up these practices over time.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I did, and then I tell you what you can do if somebody doesn't want to commit to that. I mean, I saw someone every week for, over a year and a half. So I had a regularity of having an hour and 15 minutes where someone guided me to learn to get this, because it's a learning curve. However, if I couldn't have done this, or what would I do today? You could set yourself a timer. So set a timer, or even like what I will religiously do every morning and every night, I check in with myself. What was going on today where I got pulled off my center a little bit, perhaps, and I go into that memory, right? So you can have a regularity in your day, and you only need, well, sometimes it's nice to have more time, but even if you have a minute, just do it. Brush your teeth and ask yourself, where did I get triggered today? And then go back into the memory of that trigger and feel it now, because your mind doesn't know the difference. It's not happening now, or it happened, you can go back into that same experience, and now you feel your chest closing down or so, and you just allow and breathe with that and stop the story, and you just feel the sensation until it completes itself. So if you can hook it to something you do already, brushing your teeth, or sitting down for a few minutes to meditate and do this in your practice, or set a timer, that really helps.
Nice. It's good advice.
Yeah. And it is, you won't feel like it. It's not like in the beginning, it's like, oh, cool, I get to feel my pain again today. It won't feel like it. But I can promise you, because I have people that come to me like, oh, I'm just going to cry for the next hour. I'm like, and do you know how you feel afterwards? Because each time you do it, if you complete it, you actually release a part of your shadow and your pain forever. And what's on the other side of that is more of you. And you do that for a few weeks. Can you imagine who you'll be afterwards? You'll be more free. You'll be more joyful. You'll be more empowered. I mean, you'll be that. You don't even know you are that. Because last time you were this, maybe you were 4 years old or 12, right? You don't know who you are and how amazing you could feel and how beautiful you are until you have released the stuff that armors you from it. And so, yes, it's not always fun, but I tell you what, today it's fun, because I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful this one's coming up. Yes, I'm already without it. When I have memories, I still have memories come up that aren't necessarily awesome to look at, but I'm grateful when they come, because now I know how to release it. That's the daily work. You're real. You show up for yourself. You love yourself. What does it take, Chris? You asked earlier, right? It's hard to be vulnerable, and yes, it is. It's being self-loving, not selfish, just self-full, and loving ourselves enough to show up for ourselves in that way. We make time for so much that has no meaning.
Right.
Yep.
And the truth is, you cannot give something out there that you don't give to yourself. You can't. And so you want to start out with yourself. It's just how it works. Right? Most people 100%. Want to change the world, and I get it. Me too. But you won't be able to do anything if you haven't healed yourself. It just won't work.
At least not to the degree that people want to.
Yes, not because, yes, then you get good at the doing and you burn out. But to change the world, it needs you being a different way. It's your way you emanate peacefulness.
Yeah.
And then you act kindly. Yes, acting kind is great, but what's the energy in that? That's even more important, because we are beings of energy. See, everything is created through our energy. You can act a certain way, but if your energy is not in alignment, that action can have all sorts of consequences. Usually
negative at that level.
Yeah, if you do a good deed, but your resentment is right in there, what do you think is stronger? That's where looking at it through energy is helpful. And yeah, but maybe we'll get back to some more tools too, because yes, to me, releasing the trauma, the triggers, the pain, the shadow, all of that's key, right? Because the less you have of that, the more you have of yourself. So that's just mathematically logical, right? You want to release what you're not, so that you can see who you are, and then you can be who you are. How are you going to be who you are when you don't know that? Exactly. So it's a peeling away of these layers of the onion that's required.
And that are not actually us.
That's like also a beautiful way of putting it, because then everyone who's listening can know that you're already enough and you already have it within you. There's just stuff covering it up, versus like you're lacking something.
Yeah, exactly. You have everything you could ever need for this life inside of you. Those things are literal. When the wise ones speak to this, it's very literal. And even more than it's so real, because if you know you're a being of abundance, you will draw that to you. If you know there is no fear, it's just an illusion, you will experience safety, right? So if you really know yourself and realize that everything you need is within you, you will experience it because you're drawing it to you. And that's how we change the world. But stop putting it out there without fear, projection.
Right.
That's how we create our reality. We have to own it. We are that powerful. We are all doing it individually and together. That's just how it works. So can we please stop listening to the story and come back home into ourselves and realize all of that for ourselves from within? Not because some guru said it, because now you're experiencing it, because you're actually doing the work, you're showing up, you're saying thank you for receiving food from this incredible planet. It's practices like this. There's a reason we used to do this for thousands of years, because we're feeding into the cycle of life. So yes, when you eat your food, notice what you're putting in. Hopefully it looks somewhat natural, because otherwise you can't feel it, right? But if you eat real food from the real earth, can you imagine how powerful it is to be grateful each time and to speak to that? There's real power in this. And you will experience.
No, it's just like it's really good, because again, like going back to my question before about like, how do you stay in that present moment of like awareness, but there's opportunity to do it everywhere. Like I remember what I ate for breakfast this morning, but I wasn't thinking at all what you were just talking about while I was eating, but I could have. Like, I had like rice and eggs and like vegetable. I could have easily thought of that. Like, wow, this is coming from like earth, and I am being provided for. Like, I could totally have thought that, versus like, oh, I have this and this to do today. And it just, and again, we're not really talking about like from a physical biological perspective, but that also is how it works too. Like, if your nervous system's calmer while you're eating, you're going to be able to assimilate the nutrients better. Like, it all works. It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's all connected. We are like, it's so connected.
Yeah.
It's so connected. And yes, so how do you, so it's so simple. And the beautiful thing, it really doesn't take more time or energy. It's just something new you're doing. Because when I take a shower, I am very aware that this water that's hitting me is cleansing me. So it's my spiritual practice of cleansing. And I'm washing off anything that's not mine. I'm washing off anything that I've collected the day before, and I'm cleansing myself. I'm doing a deeper spiritual practice, connecting with the life force, water. And I'm doing a powerful thing for my energy body that's needed for me to operate in the way that I want to, right? So that's literally daily practice of myself. Can you see, right? So if you bring in spiritual awareness into your life, and it's not something you just think is a good idea, but you do it, right? That's where it's powerful. I do make an offering to the land every morning, right? So I have cornmeal and tobacco, and I thank the earth, and I connect with my spiritual family, if you will, with that connection, and myself, and I give thanks to a word, and I put it in this offering, and then I put it out on the land. I do that every day. Am I more connected? I am, right?
Yeah. You know, it's like, I was just thinking about the shower thing, and I was also thinking about the eating thing. And I'm thinking about like what I usually think about when I'm showering or when I'm eating. And it's like, I'm thinking about things that I have to do for that day. Like, me thinking about it while doing those things is actually going to help. It's like that illusion of control. It's like, oh, I don't want to be present and think about the food I'm eating and how it's nourishing my body, because I don't have time for that. Like, I got to think about what I got to do today, with like that mentality of like, oh, me thinking about it, it's actually going to do anything, but it's not. Yeah.
It's not. And now you're in stress mode, probably a little bit more, as your body needs to digest the food. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that's probably I mean, that used to be me. It's not me now, but I remember being in that, and it's what we see around us, right? It's people are usually on their phone while they're eating, and like, it's just nuts. And so, yes, it tastes better too, by the way.
Yeah. But I guess it goes back to what you were saying before about like what you value. And I think like until you try it enough, and until you actually feel the difference it makes, like like a normal person probably doesn't see the value in it. Like, they would rather catch up on the news or something. You know what I mean? Because they value that more than the connection to themselves while they're eating or when they're showering. And I think part of those, like, and again, this is a very simple thing that you can change. And this is what I'm hearing from you. It's very simple that you could do that over time. Like, it changes the relationship you have with these things. And that changes the relationship you have with yourself. And that changes the relationship you have with the world, because you're different.
Yeah, exactly. And what's the trickiest part of it all maybe is what you just spoke to. They don't know the value, because if we don't experience the value somewhere, if we don't have an inkling of what that's like, we wouldn't think that's worth our energy to have these practices and to feel ourselves. I mean, people are like, well, I'm feeling myself, right? Like, but unless you actually do, you wouldn't prioritize it, because you don't know how good it would feel and what it really gives you. It's beyond feeling good. It's like everything changes in a way you can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's like that saying that it's that like if you knew better, you'd do better. It's like we're all like doing the best we can. Yeah. It's like totally. You try some of these things out and you feel it, then it's like, oh, I can do better now because I know better.
Yeah. Right. And that's where the mind will try to figure it out through thinking, and it's not in the thinking, it's an experience. So the only way we can know it is by giving ourselves the experience. So it's a choice. And it can be just like, okay, I'm going to do this for the challenge. I'll try this on for 3 weeks or even 3 days, right? I'll just see. But without it, nothing will, then we might get the big impact, right? The big wake up call that we're like, oh, okay, I guess I have no more choice now.
Yeah.
Most of us wait for that.
I'm excited for the challenge.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. I'm totally going to participate. I'm going to do exactly what I'm sharing. And just so you know, because I know I can come across as this is the way, I'm literally just sharing what's helped me. And if for the people that work with me, they know I always share what works for me because I love it and I believe in it. And I always say, and now make it yours. Because I very well know that there are a million ways to do this, but there's an example, try it out, and then you kind of know what to look for, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you can go off on many different tools, because I know there's many things that are practices that you take on in your own life, Skye. And unless there is something else that you wanted to share, like another tool or anything, because obviously most of it, a lot of it, the experience will be in the 21-day challenge.
Yeah, I think at this point, let's leave in the challenge. There's definitely things
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
I was feeling that.
that way.
I was definitely feeling that too. Cause even like, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been silent or quiet the last like 15 minutes or so, because I still been thinking about that first tool that you shared, or the first practice. Seriously, because that's so deep. Like there's so much more I want to say about that. And obviously, as you know, I've worked with you, Skye, like I know what you're speaking to, and just that, I don't know, it's a deeper experience that cannot be put into words. That just, it's in the heart. Like it's and in the whole body, like you said. So I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to the 21-day challenge too.
Yeah. Thank you. And I love that you just shared this, because yes, we've worked, so you've known this work for a while now, and yet for me too. I mean, it's like, I'm not getting it every single day. I don't think that's exaggerated. Every single day I get a new nuance of this work and what it actually means. I mean, that's why it's never boring for me, because it's just exponential, and I don't think, oh, how can it ever stop?
It can't. Because we're dealing with the infinite, especially when you get to that realm of like going beyond the mind. The mind is finite.
Totally. Exactly.
At least the way in which we use it within our human brain, you know, like there's limitations to that, but when we dive deeper, there's no limitations.
Exactly. And so what this ultimately is, that's just a nice drum roll here. This is about our awakening.
Right.
This is exactly what it can look like. This is us being like, yes, we have a mind, we have a body, they have certain needs and tendencies, and I am more than that. And we wake up to who we are by prioritizing, getting to know that part, and then it's a journey that you experience life differently, right? You begin to change. And it's not an event like it's over tomorrow. It's like, I think it'll continue to go, because as you evolve, you just noticing more and more of what you just spoke to. It's infinite. It's infinite.
Yeah. It's the beauty of life, beauty of our life, like our individual lives, of the experience that we can have.
Yeah. And right now we're really supporting each other and showing up for each other more than ever. And in the communities where that's happening more, right, I'm just really holding it as such a ripple effect, where we are so connected, as we know. And the more of us show up, even 1 minute more today, just for this moment right now, I'm going to show up as my true self. I'm just going to be brave enough to not smile and nod, but to at least hold my energy differently. Or maybe share what you really want to say, maybe share a feeling, share what it makes you feel too, right? That's these little moments where we have the courage to show up differently, where we come more into alignment with our true nature, and we give other people permission to do the same. And that's where we really help and carry each other and walk each other home.
Absolutely. Just breathing that in. Thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, especially that last part. I felt like that was a nice wrap up that really speaks to everything we've been speaking to.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, is there anything else that you want to share about the challenge before we move forward? And obviously, before you do, we will have a link in or is it a link or just emailing you, Skye? Because I forgot.
Yeah. So on my email, I'll have a pop-up window where you put in your email address, and then you'll get this challenge sent to you. So there'll be about 6 to 8 emails. It won't, trust me, it won't go on forever. But you can, so officially we'll start on Monday, April 25th of 2022. So whoever hears it before that, let's do this together. We'll all do it with you. And then it'll be available on my website and through this email sequence for as long as, I don't foresee taking it off anytime soon. So whenever you listen to it, it's still there.
Right.
Yes. And
Excellent.
so, my website at skyevision.com.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So they can go to your website, sign up there. They'll get the emails in that 21-day challenge. And again, starting officially together. April 25th to Monday. So excellent. Yeah. So we'll have that in the description for anyone to click, but anything else you want to say about the challenge to invite people more so than just than the logistics?
see it. If you're at all curious, follow. That's how it works. If you feel something, if something's tugging in you, and you feel that little like, or big, who knows, right? But this little ping or this like, oh, then just try it out. What do you have to lose?
Right.
Just your mind. You have the only thing you have to lose is, something you probably wouldn't mind losing anyways. So it's an opportunity, and it's fun. To me, all this is fun, and I hope to have a lot of you on there, because right, if we wait, last word, like we talked about before, it's all within, and that means also if we wait for someone out there to create the change we want, we will wait a long time.
Yep.
Because a lot of people are already living in this new world we're talking about. It's here right now. It's whatever you tune into. So don't wait for things to happen out there. Don't wait for all these cool technologies that we know exist to be there. Do it now. You do it with your energy. You are that powerful. And it's not that complicated, right? It's really not. And it is in these little tools that you begin to have everything you really need become available to you, because you realize it from the inside out.
Beautiful. And I don't think we said this specifically, but this is also free. Like,
oh yeah.
I don't think we said that yet, but yeah, completely free.
Yes, it's just because we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. Like I said, that link to sign up for that and is in the description. Yeah. If you feel that calling, that pull, definitely do it. Yeah. So thank you for being here, Skye, and thank you for sharing this all with us. It's just awesome. Been awesome. Like I feel so like more, I don't know, connected, even just speaking about this, hearing you speak about it. So
thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It takes all of us to share ourselves in that way, and always grateful to be with you guys.
Same here. All right, we'll end the episode there. Thank you again for being here, Skye.
And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. So any questions, any comments, connect with us on Instagram personally at Kevin F. Carton
or at Chris J. Carton, or our podcast Instagram page at Science and Spirituality Podcast. And if you feel guided to, the one thing that we do ask is for you to please rate the podcast and also leave a review. This way we can reach more people and in that way impact more lives. So with that, we'll see you on the next episode.